Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 340. We have a guest, somebody we've known for a long time, but we just realized this is the first time he's ever been on the show. But for some reason, I have a feeling we must have chatted or something on some other platform. But we'll get to our guest in a minute. But first, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to introduce ourselves, go around the room, talk about anything we have to promote. So I'll start. You're on my channel, so that's where you can find me. This is the first time my Kickstarter is wrapped up, so I don't have that to promote. I guess I can just I got everyone's link here but mine. Where is mine? That's all right. It's just go to circworks.com. And then they've got prints and I've got all kinds of stuff there. Or on the YouTube channel, you can watch Making Comics 101, which is my series on how to make comics, everything from coming up with your idea all the way to printing, publishing, and every step in between. Oh, it's a new interesting thing that I just got alerted to today. I was on my Facebook, and they give you those little this many years ago this happened or whatever. And I was going to pull it up, but I went off the Facebook page, and when I went back, it was gone. So I don't know where it went. But there was it was a post from Jeff Lafferty saying we're starting a new show, which was the Artcasters. So 7 years ago today is when he posted the video talking about us starting the Artcasters, which originally started off as Jeff, Kevin Cross, and myself. So I assume probably next week, because we probably would have went live a week after that or so. That would have been the first Artcaster show. So it's been, there's been a lot of changes and iterations, but like I said, I think our guest tonight has been around since probably that iteration of that first Artcasters. So anxious to get to finally talk a little more in person. We got a really interesting topic today. But we'll get to the topic in a minute. I'm going to go clockwise around the room. We're going to go and look who's back. It's Josh. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Good. So, I do live streams and stuff like that quite often when I'm working. So make sure you're following Joshua Kemble on YouTube. And then actually, 2 days ago, I just dropped 2 music albums by No Saboteurs. So my band No Saboteurs, you can find it on any streaming platform. If you want to support my music and stuff, you can buy the albums on Apple Music. But if you have Spotify and you're short on funds, just listen to it on Spotify. I would recommend check it out on whatever streaming platform you listen to your music on. So it's 2 albums. No Saboteurs, No Emperors is the really produced one. And then Good Bees Don't Die is the second album, and it has album art by my son. And that one's way more experimental and crazy, but I encourage you guys to check those out. They're 2 albums that we just dropped 2 days ago. And then aside from that, I have my books, which is 2 Stories, which is my graphic novel about my journey dealing with depression, as well as growing up in a hypocritical Christian school, and a lot of interesting stories, like dressing as Indiana Jones for an entire year before cosplay was a thing. That's 2 Stories. You can get that on Amazon. And then the last thing I'll mention is Jacob's Apartment, which is my graphic novel that is kind of in the vein of if you took Ghost World and Eternal Sunshine for a Spotless Mind, put that in a blender, and you like that flavor. It's that kind of doomed romance story about the kinds of questions that can shake even the strongest of faith. And the one thing I'd ask with Jacob's Apartment is make sure that you ask your local library or local bookstore to order that book and carry it. And that's my wares. Corey, where can everybody find your stuff?
I don't even know. I'm so fried this week. I have spent the majority of my week in a spreadsheet, which, so first week of school, and I've been doing math equations. You can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. And I have an email newsletter that comes out sporadically, but no more frequently than once a week. And you can get that at CoreyKerr.com/email. And I have begun entering stuff into the festival circuit again. So if you want to
Nice.
get a sneak peek on that, then you can check out CoreyKerr.com/shades, which is the most recent one that I did. But if you haven't seen the other two or any of the little weird ones, they're all on there as well. So go wander around.
Awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. And our guest tonight is Creed Stonegate. Like I said, he's been in the community for a long time, and I guess it's the first time on the show. But how's it going, Creed? Anything you got
It's going
about?
awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely.
So let's see. I saw the cover of Blue Devil #1 in 1984, and that's why I'm an artist today. It hit me like like that lightning bolt that hit the Flash. It's that one single thing that did it. And I thought I was going to be drawing comics, and turned out my love for cartoons. Everybody knows, like, that knows me knows I love the fan art. That's why I do it. I draw my favorite 80s and 90s stuff. I got a sticker store that you're going to get stickers that you didn't know anybody made. And now I'm doing, I have 3 arms of art I'm doing. I'm doing that. I'm doing vintage comic panels, and now I'm doing AI art. So
yeah,
one of those might get some traction.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can find, is it your stickers are at infinitecoolness.com?
Infinitecoolness.com sort of crudely links to all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And we've also have clickable links in the description, link to your website, your YouTube channel, and also your DeviantArt page. So if anyone who wants to check out what Creed's doing, definitely go there. Let me switch over to comments real quick. Oh wait, let me switch back. All over the place.
Yeah, my DeviantArt is actually probably what, like, that and my Instagram are my 2 main things right now, which I never thought DeviantArt would be a main thing. I didn't know it could be, but I'm like, it's really taken off when you post like 5 or 6 things a day. Who knew?
Yeah, and that's definitely what we want to talk about, because I mean, it sounds like you've upped your production with the help of AI, and that's something that's definitely in the zeitgeist right now, and something I wanted to do a topic on, but out of the 3 of us, I don't think any of us have actually used it. So I'm like, you know what? Rather than, and because we all have opinions, but I want to get somebody on here who actually uses it, so to kind of give us that angle and everything, because I don't know where everyone stands on it. I'm kind of in the middle. I definitely see a lot of benefits. I see some things that that are a little scary and everything, but and there's just a lot of different issues surrounding it. But for me, it's fairly new. I just want to kind of educate myself on it a little bit. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just getting into learning more about it and how it works and everything. And pretty amazed by what you can do with it. And like I said, it's
cool. It's cool scary. And scary and awesome and terrible. And, just like everything else.
That's why I titled this episode AI Art, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because I think we're going to touch on each one of those 3 things. So, but I don't know, how do we want to go about this? Do we briefly want to go and just give our initial thoughts, or do we want to, does anyone have a suggestion on how we want to approach this? Because this is kind of...
Are any of us capable of doing something briefly? Because I don't think.
Yeah, that is true. Good point.
I don't think I have a brief opinion on it.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of get into it. I guess we'll start with Creed, and we'll find, because since he's been using AI to assist with his art and everything. I guess I want to know how you kind of discovered it, because you've been using it for a little while. And how did you come across it? How did you and how did it? I imagine from everyone that I've heard that uses it, it like sucks them in. It's like, oh wow, look, and I have a feeling that it will, whenever I get a calendar or something like that, and I start playing with it, it'll probably be the same way for me. That's probably the reason why I haven't, because I've got so many other things that I'm doing that I don't have time to go down that rabbit hole, at least right now. But I know I'm gonna find some use for it. I don't know what yet, I mean, whether it's idea generation or whatever, but you've been using AI for a little while. So how did you discover it, and how did you start using it? And what drew you into the world of artificial intelligence generated art?
Well, I heard about it long ago, and at that time it was just like you'd get a blurry, like, this kind of looks like an eye. This is a miracle, kind of. I was like, yeah, okay. Let me know when it takes over the world. I didn't know it would happen so quick. But then I saw some stuff on Twitter. Oh, RIP Twitter. They booted me last week. I'm off of there, and I don't know why. Like, it just, the way these platforms are. But I saw it on Twitter, like, they'd go by these blocks of pictures, and people like, oh, almost like that word puzzle thing. Like, you just see waves of them come and go. And I saw all these blocks, like 9 blocks of things, and people were like, oh, I made this. And some of them got to be interesting. And I'm like, I'm going to find out what that is and look it up and make some myself. And that was, it was at the time, it was called Dolly Mini, but they changed the name because, like, just some guy named that Dolly Mini. He's not related to Dolly. And so they were like, change the name, you're confusing people. So now it's called Crayon, and it's still free, and it gives you 9 images when you type it in. But it's really, it's almost like what an Etch-a-Sketch is to a TV. Like, it's just a starter, kind of show you what it'll do, but you won't get any really quality images out of it. And I played with it for quite a while, and I tuned it to make really gruesome blood-covered monsters, like a lot of them. And so I was having fun with that. And then I was like, this is cool. If I could just do this sort of novelty thing I was doing, but I could get good high-resolution images or even better resolution and I could see some detail, that'd be great. So I signed up for what I thought was the grandfather or the older version of what I was taking. Like, I didn't know they weren't related. But so I signed up for Dolly, but it was like a waiting list. And then it was like 2 months before I heard back. And that's pretty typical. See, there's a lot of people on a lot of the groups that are like, I put my name in long ago. Any hope? And nobody in the group is going to know, but so, and then everything changed when I got the invitation. I was like, okay, I get in, and it runs on a point system, which sucks because you have to buy points for money. But actually, I saw something today. There's another AI that I used a little bit of. It was called Instill, and I checked their website. They're like, yeah, we're closing down. We can't be a free AI thing. That doesn't work. So it's kind of good that they charged in a way because it's going to keep this technology going. But I get on, and it was way more than what that little Dolly Mini was. It was like you could actually make some art, and it was pretty good. And like me not knowing what I was doing, I thought maybe at least I can generate ideas from this. And what it turned out to, it generates art, like art that if you have some Photoshop skills, you can turn into finished art. But I mean, pretty good art. And then since I get into that, I've been into, I used probably 3 or 4 other ones, and they're all completely different. Like, you won't get the same result with the same prompt. You won't. It's like they learn totally different ways.
Well, yeah, I heard that even if you're in whatever app or software, even if you do the same exact prompt in there, it still will have a totally different result. So
there's a way now in Stable Diffusion is one of the main ones I use now. And when you use Stable Diffusion, it'll give you the tag for the exact settings and a seed number. So you can duplicate that, but if you change a small thing, like just the size of the image, you'll get a variation. But,
yeah, because I guess if you're going to use it for some kind of narrative or something like that, and I think it's Stable Diffusion that I heard is the one where you can actually input some of your own art and you can have it kind of learn, kind of your
like
own
2
style.
days ago that started. It's not really anything yet, but give it a week.
Yeah, so that's somewhat intriguing to me. My only issue with that is it sounds like anything that you use through these programs is available to other people to use, or because obviously anytime you're
you don't want to put your style up on the internet. Here, use my style. That'd upset me. But what it looked like, the video I saw, and this is just the very start of this thing, is Buddy fed some images of his art into it. I think he only did like 4 or 5, and then he had it draw like that. But there was 2 ways you could do it. You could, and an easier way was to make the file that you made, which is basically your style. I guess not. Like I said, it's caveman days for this stuff. But that file, the easiest way is to make that public, which is crazy. But then there is a way you can just privately keep it on your computer too. But I think I'm going to wait for something like that. Like, I can still draw like me, so I don't need to the thing to draw like me right now.
Right. Yeah. I assume I think with, and again, I don't know a whole lot about this just from what I've heard. It sounds like with Midjourney, I thought that there's a level at which you can pay where your stuff is private and it's not shared with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like most of it, I think Midjourney's sort of like a public hall you're making your art in. But yeah, I'm pretty sure if you get a membership, then you're doing your own private thing.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's very interesting. I don't know. Does anyone want to chime in? I don't know, based on what anyone.
So I'm curious.
Yeah.
Creed, you said that you wouldn't want to put your style up because you find that would be crazy.
Yeah.
It's using existing artists and older artists and old art and stuff. And so how do you kind of rectify the thought in your mind that you don't want to put yours up, but you know that it's using others?
Yeah, it is using other stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with this thing so much that there's an end of it where if you wanted to make a gallery of Simon Bisley art and try to sell that, you can be a big superhero and say, here's my gallery, and technically fine. That's over a line that I don't want to be Simon Bisley. But
Yeah.
there's that ability with some names, and that's kind of random, just depends on if that was in the pool that was fed into the machine. It's like people think, oh, the more famous and less famous. No, it's just if you were included in these 5 million images or not is really what it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find is, and it helps to use multiple names instead of like one person's name, because I don't want something to look like John Byrne did it, because then John Byrne did it. But it's more like those people from Star Trek that talk in a strange story instead of words, like this, that, and this. It's like that. You're telling, if it gives you something really jagged look, you'll name off some smooth artists and it'll steer it. That's how I've been using that kind of stuff. I'm getting stuff that looks like exactly like somebody else's style. That doesn't help me any. Like, that's not, I'm not going to try to sell products with that because that's weird. But it's like, I'm sure somebody will. There'll be 12 Simon Bisleys out there. But as far as I know, Simon Bisley's a huge guy. So good luck to them.
Yeah,
monstrous like Lobo is what I heard, like in real life. So.
Yeah, I'm still kind of unclear about how this works, but from what I hear, it's not, because originally I thought it was, it'll take like different images and it kind of mashes them up.
No,
from what I understand, it's deeper than that, and it's not. So I don't.
Everybody's been saying like basically that it's a collage machine, and that's ripping off everybody that they're using in the collage. I've been using it. I really don't see that, because if I have a picture and I cut it, here's the magical stuff. Instead of all this kind of like the stuff everybody talks about, the magical stuff is you get a picture from it, and let's say the arm's all twisted. Okay, you make a transparent PNG file. You cut out that section with the arm. You feed it back with the hole in it, and you tell it, hey, put a regular arm in there. And it goes, here you go. But then if you don't like that arm, you can cut that out and tell them. So it doesn't have that many arms, but let's say I'm trying to copy Joe Jusko and I wanted to paint it. Well, he doesn't have that many Joe Jusko arms to cut and paste. He learned how Joe Jusko makes the arm. And he went, how about this one? How about that one? It really, it's not as straightforward as people go, oh, it's cutting and pasting stuff and it's ripping off people.
Right.
It really doesn't seem like that to me, and I've done thousands and thousands of interactions with these things. So
yeah, I was at Adobe Max several years ago as they were they do their sneaks where they kind of release different things.
Yeah.
There was two of them that kind of stood out to me. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. I imagine lots of companies are working on different things like this. And I mean, if if people think that Adobe is not watching every move that you make, as soon as they switch to cloud, they're learning everything that they possibly can from you. They call it Sensei.
Mm-hmm.
But they had released in the sneaks something where if you had 20 minutes of somebody's audio, you could basically make an audio file that sounded exactly like that person, and you could choose any emotion to say any number of words, and it was indistinguishable from actual audio.
Right.
The other thing that they did is they said if you color this, if you shade this chart, and it was like a sphere and a cube. So basically, you'd get like gradiated transitions and then hard transitions of light and shadow in whatever style you did. Then you could take a picture of that and you could apply it to any photograph and it would turn that photograph into that illustration style. So this type of thing has been around. What I find interesting about sneaks is that's one of the nights that they get everybody drunk. And so like you go to Max and there's like free booze only in a couple places and everybody is wasted. And I'm
From
the
my
only
memory, it's in almost every place that they have free booze, but that
not
might
during
just
like the
be my
workshops
memory.
during the day, but like, yeah, when they get everybody in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's one of the ones where it's like, there's everybody's in the same room. It's one of the big ones and the booze is flowing and everybody's sitting there like clapping. And I'm like, your jobs are being automated.
Yeah, exactly.
You're cheering for you're cheering for your career being shrinking. But my issue with AI art is probably not going to be surprising to anyone. I think that unregulated growth in the body is defined as cancer, right? And I think unregulated growth in tech is terrifying. And so my problem with AI art is not like, oh, it's taking jobs or whatever. My problem with it is a legal issue. Is I think that the way that it's being done is unethical. I don't think any of the artists have been asked whether they want to include their art in there. I don't think that there's now databases being built that are reverse engineering where the art is coming from. And I think there's going to be some legal issues with the unlicensed use of art. And my problem is our current copyright law was the most recent version of it is written before the internet existed. It's not an appropriate tool to address what's going on here.
Yeah.
But there's something shady about taking something that I've made or that you've made, Creed, or that Josh has made, or that Burn or anybody has made, and just being like, we're just gonna do this now. And I kind of have the same problem with it that I have with Google photographing every public place on the planet. And they argued in court that they were allowed to do that because a single personal photographer is allowed to take photos of public spaces. And they said, so should we be? And I don't think we should apply individual human liberties to corporations or software. I think those are three different things, and the law should apply differently to those three different things. And so my issue with it is probably a little bit different than everybody else's, but also probably not surprising. I just feel like the lie that tech tells us that this is inevitable, and they've been telling us that for 20 years, like it's inevitable, you can't do anything about it, there's and we can. I mean, that's why we have collective action. That's why we have litigation, and that's why we have laws, and that's why we have a social contract. I mean, all of those things are ways to curb different things. And I said this when I was talking to Gary about it. At one point in time, a bunch of Scottish scientists got together and cloned a sheep, and everybody was like, whoa, that's weird. Let's not go down that road. That's a weird road to go down. There's a lot of ethical, moral, spiritual, existential issues that we're not ready to grapple with. And everybody kind of just decided that we didn't want to do that. And I think we can do kind of the same things of like, yeah, algorithms, artificial intelligence, they're here and they're going to be part of our lives. But I think they can be developed in a sustainable and ethical and moral way so that we're not just a snake eating its own tail.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that it's automated and it's learning in such a rate, but in some ways it's really, and not that and not to throw any shade to Creed, because I know he's done his background is being a fan artist. But when you go to a comic convention or whatever, you see a lot of people that are, just basically either ripping off other people's styles, other people's IPs, and it's, although it's not legal, they it's no one's taking any action on that. So it's like I'm so used to that now that AI is doing, it's like, yeah, it's kind of the same thing, but of course it's it's just growing faster and everything. But I don't know. I think at some point, I think it's going to, at least in the beginning, I think it's going to replace a lot of this stuff that's very derivative, because that's what it's designed to do. And I think it might even open up. Space for people to do. People may, I think people may get tired of seeing the same stuff that they see over and over again, especially like if you're going to go to a convention and, purchase fan art or something like that is based on a character they know. Because I know when I was trying to do conventions and do something original, and just not a whole lot of people were interested in that. But I think now with the capability that pretty much anyone can create that, I don't think people will be as as interested in that type of artwork, because there's going to be so much around that they might be looking at, okay, what's different? What's something that I haven't seen? What's a new property or something like that? So I don't know. I know things are going to change, and I'm not exactly sure how they're going to change. But for me, I think a lot of people are going to lean into AI, and I think it's going to, for me, and I can definitely see myself using it. I'm concerned about the same stuff Corey is, and like Creed says, I'm not gonna use it to duplicate like a Simon Bisley style or something like that. But there are people that will. So everyone's kind of has to make up their own, where they personally draw the line. But, I could see, like, for instance, I know, Corey, you kind of struggled with shades, all this, because originally you had all these students and stuff lined up to do the artwork and stuff, and they didn't fulfill it. I mean, if you had the AI capabilities at that time, I assume a lot of the backgrounds and a lot of those scenes, you could have probably used it to up your, especially and I think this is going to help out like one-man shops. I think big companies are going to suffer the most from this. I mean, they will benefit too, because they can probably just fire half of their art staff and have AI do a lot of the work. But I think it's as an independent artist, I think it's going to give us independent artists the capability of doing things on a scale that we could never do before, to do things like big companies do, because we can just increase our productivity so much. I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
Even if it did speed up my process, which I'm sure it would, I wouldn't use it.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That.
But I don't do a lot of things that a lot of people do, and I don't begrudge that. I think everybody's got a different process, and everybody kind of has to grapple with, their own use of reference. For example, I probably use reference a little bit more heavily than a lot of people do, and a lot of people, use it more or less than I do or whatever. And there's lots of things like that where, there's kind of that type of thing. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. It is going to be fascinating to see in the industry. I'm hoping that there's still going to be value in the human element.
Yeah.
I think there will. I think the process is where people are going to be interested in, because I don't think, and I could be wrong, because people sit here and watch people play video games, which is a huge thing that I don't particularly understand. I mean, for me, but I'm not a person that goes and watches sports or anything either. I mean, I consider myself, I guess, more of a participant than a spectator. But there are people that are just watch people playing video games. So I may be wrong with this, but I don't think anyone's going to, other than maybe just for the learning, to learn how it's done so they can do it themselves. I don't see people watching people typing things into a computer and generating artwork. Again, I could be wrong, but I think people are going to be interested in the process. I mean, all this, the kind of that artisanal movement is so big, where people are creating things back in the way they did, before we even had electricity. And people are really interested in seeing how that stuff's done. So I know with my channel in the future, that's kind of where I'm going to go. A lot more process, a lot more hands-on, a lot more showing how it's done, how things come together, and unique ways of doing that, just because I want to kind of stay ahead of this curve, and I don't know exactly where it's going. So yeah.
So Gary said, I think the risk here is the public's general indifference or ignorance or illiteracy to what goes into being an artist or making art. And then he further said, nobody is interested in seeing a robot swim in the Olympics because we see humans do it. We like to see humans do a thing at a high level.
Yeah.
Less true with art and artists. We need to educate the public and outreach. I agree. I tend to think this is where Corey and I have talked about this for years. And Corey has a quote. He has I think you have a design that says this, but to do things that robots can't. And I think this just highlights more and more that telling really authentic and sincere stories that are from yourself, I think that's a value that is going to only gain value as we go further into like this AI thing, because I think there is something like Scott, like you were saying, with like artisanal stuff, things that are expressing some sort of sincerity and emotion, I think is always going to have like a higher value than AI art. The one thing I was going to ask Creed is when I've messed around with crayon, I've just done like a few little searches just out of curiosity. I think at one point I asked it to make a Donald Trump made out of Cheetos, and it did, and it was weird. It looked like a Cheeto that had just formed itself into like Donald Trump's face, and I was like, that's insane. But it also, I've noticed like with human faces and like details like the fingers on hands, it tends to have this like warped kind of look. Is that a common thing, like the kind of warping that occurs, or and
Yeah,
if so, is how do you kind of get around that, or do you just use that as like a base to build off of?
When this started, they had a lot of the same problem with faces. Like you'd get a lot of really derpy faces that were hard to like. It's almost like, well, I got this from the computer, but is it more work to do it another way, or is it less work to do it another way right now? But then they've been really fixing how to generate faces, and now they have tools that'll straighten it all up and fix a lot of that stuff. So they're really trying to work with hands, but hands are going to be a little more difficult because they're more difficult for artists. So, but the twisty hands is definitely a thing. But it won't happen every time. So it's more like if you do a lot of generations, you'll get a few that work out pretty good. It's coming along though. But yeah, that's a main problem is you get a lot of that. And then also if you have the ability in some of these AIs to set instead of just square, because they all started off being trained with square images. Now if you set it like portrait style, sometimes you'll get two things on top of each other. Like if you say a person, it'll give you a double-headed thing, like double-decker, and that's because it was trained on square. So they're kind of working with that too. There's a lot of stuff they're still adjusting.
That's interesting. Do you think it's like, I mean, because to me the stuff I've seen generated just looks like slightly demonic. Like it just looks psychotic.
Well,
like a lot of
that, so
yeah, it's actually hard to get a good-looking demon from some of these things, but it's there's a long way to go, but what I find is the more I've been working with it, the more I learn how to twist around the things I know to avoid.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions, like if somebody was to get into AI, like some of the workarounds that you've found to kind of because I could see here's one thing I will say about AI that I don't think is a negative. It could help, like if you, let's say, are trying to kind of piece together some reference for an image that you're going to draw
absolutely.
Eventually. I feel like it could cut a lot of the work out of that for
Beats
artists.
Google Images right away. Yeah, because Google Images might not have it. This will have it because they're making it for you.
Yeah, and Adobe has a pretty good. Their stock image AI that's built on Sensei is hands and feet above Google Images as well, and so like that type of thing is going to be useful and is currently useful for sure.
Yeah, and I can see, like, I feel like a lot of the time as artists, I mean, this happened when like typography was first like digitized, I think everyone was like, oh, it's the end of typography. And then it's like, no, you still to this day, like you are a much better and more paid designer if you know how to kern lettering. Like all the basics of typography have stuck around, and just like the fact that we can do it digitally is like an adaptation, but it's not like it killed all the fundamentals of art. So I don't know.
Skill is still skill.
Yeah.
Just because you have a camera doesn't make you a photographer.
And I really
Exactly.
like that whole argument where people are saying like, oh, it's going to end everybody's jobs because they're just going to press button art. I think I really saw the answer to that last night, because for a month now, I've been I've had my head down just making art, and I haven't even really looked at DeviantArt, which is where I've been putting all this stuff. And what I noticed, a few people here and there would have messages like, oh, how can I not see this AI stuff on here and there? But that's all I'd see. And I'm like, okay, that's a couple of haters or something like that. But no, like I looked at it last night. I looked at the site itself, and it is flooded with press button art. And it's not, there's no anything put into it except for that button. But that's going to happen because there's every variation of person is out there. So every different thing you can do with this is going to be done. But I think still the people with no art skills make press button art, and you can see that it's press button art. So it's not a challenge to what I'm doing, because I aim for a way higher quality than that. And as people with art skills will make stuff that's just, it's like a genre. It's like, you'll make better AI art if you're an artist than somebody who's not. It's just the same as painting or sculpture or whatever else. If you're a sculptor, you'll make better sculptures. Just I saw that last night, and I'm like, that answers that. It's just like one of those plastic things that'll sort your change when you throw it into it. That's what's happening. Just
Yeah, and I think that for that, the thing I was gonna say too, that's like a huge thing is, let's say it can generate a great image. Like half of the job of a designer and an illustrator is to revise things to kind of fit better to like what the client wants. And so it's like for people, assuming that this is just going to replace everybody's jobs, I do kind of think that's something to consider too. But I will say, if you're a person like Scott was saying, making really derivative work, maybe this is a sign to like get away from that, because that may not be a promising future, in the art world. Sam T said
those are the jobs that are in danger,
Yeah.
Which I think is a problem, because the entry level jobs, we're talking about,
right? Yeah. How do you get to the higher level jobs if you can't?
Yeah, people being an artist at a high level. How do you get there if you're not allowed to suck for a few years?
Yeah.
I kind of fear for Scott's favorite website, Fiverr. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Fiverr is just like, I mean, it's for now. I mean, at least what you can say for the people that are on Fiverr, because the first thing, my biggest problem was like, okay, $5, and how long does it take you to do this art? But if you can just type it in there, and which a lot of people I'm sure on Fiverr are going to do, but like I said, once people learn that, I can just do this myself, who knows?
And people are going to do that, and that might fill their job they needed done, or they'll get somebody else on Fiverr to do it or whatever. But somebody who's like, no, I need a higher level of thing. Okay, who can do this at that higher level? It's just going to be, it's not a flat field. If you're better at it or worse at it, it still makes a difference.
But it will get to that point. That's my concern.
Yeah, this thing is learning so fast.
I'm hoping to be a gray old man in a hat. I have to keep the sun from burning my flesh, so.
Yeah, well, think about what's happened just in my lifetime, right? I don't know how old you are, Creed, but
1,000 years old.
Okay, well, in 40 years, we've gone from, I have a piece of glass in my pocket that I can say words to, and it calls down any known information in any format from a satellite in space and beams it to my hand. But I remember for a long time, I had like a big giant brick that had a curly cord attached to the wall. You know what I mean? And that's a fairly significant leap in just a few decades.
I remember laughing at the first guy I saw walking around on the street with a cell phone. I thought, look at Mr. Fancy there. He's so important. Look at him go. And I was laughing. I was like, and now that's like, I'd be laughed at for laughing,
Right. And so what I'm saying is, I think so we've got a couple comments, and I think Sam's comment is interesting, and a couple of things that have been said in the chat. When computer beat human at chess champ in 1997, it caused an alarm, but nobody stopped playing chess.
Yeah.
The problem that we're having right now is if you apply precedented understanding to unprecedented events, you're already behind the eight ball. And so this is something that is different than things that we've experienced in the past. And so it's kind of like the Ford Model T shows up and everybody called it a horseless carriage. It wasn't that, but they were trying to frame it in a way that they understood. But nobody could say, like, that thing's going to go 250 miles an hour. We're going to need lanes and paint on the road. We're going to need rules of like signs that help people know when to stop so we don't run everybody over. There needed to be, society needed to rise up and say, this is an unprecedented technology. We've got to build some systems and regulation around this, or we're just going to kill everybody. Because the chance of having, a bunch of children plowed over by a horse-drawn carriage was significantly less than filling the entire planet full of motorized vehicles that having combustion engines inside of them. And this is another one of those things that's like, if we apply our existing thinking to it, I think we're going to miss the point of it, and it's going to pass us by. The danger of it is not that it's able to replace entry-level jobs. The danger of it is that it is learning so fast and undifferentiated, unregulated, without any direction, without any thought for morality or for ethics or for legality or for what may happen 10 years down the road. It's just progress for the sake of progress, that I think we're going to just, it is possible that we're sprinting towards a singularity, or that we're sprinting towards the extinction of things. I mean, we still haven't grappled with automated driving, and 25% of the American male population is involved in the trucking industry. Automated driving is pretty much already here. What happens when a quarter of the adult population of the US and the male side is out of work? Like, we haven't grappled with those types of things. And this is yet just another technology that we're thinking of as a shiny object, but I actually think it's a huge existential threat to humanity.
Yeah, I get the trucking industry, Corey, but no one cares about artists making money.
Yeah. I tend to think I like what Corey is saying, but I do also think kind of like the good example of like the cell phone or whatever versus like the old brick of a phone we used to have, or if you're in the 80s, maybe it's like a high heel or whatever the hell else, kind of banana phone or something. Garfield, but anyhow, the thing that we probably shouldn't miss, though, is like it's also not helpful to kind of like plug our ears and close our eyes to like new technologies. And so I don't think it's a bad idea to like start looking at this. Like for me, I'm not sure how much this would help me in my current, workflow, but I think it might behoove us to like pay a little bit of attention to it, because if it does kind of end up being like the new thing, it's like anything, like, with Photoshop basically automating everything you could do in a dark room. If you're like the guy who's just sticking to the old way of doing photography and doing it in a studio rather than on Photoshop, you do have a chance of like, missing out on some potential work or missing out on some shortcuts that can save you time. And so I do think it would kind of behoove us to look at AI and see what ways it can benefit us now, rather than like be caught by surprise like 5 years from now when, does that make sense?
Yeah.
As much as I'm opposed to it.
I don't think it's one or the other. I think still what Corey's talking about as far as, having some kind of regulation preparing for this.
Yeah.
Still using it as a tool.
There should definitely be stopgaps. Like, for example, a lot of the ones you use, sometimes they'll come back with either blank or blurry images, and that didn't get through their like content filter, and the content filters are really like strict. But and everybody uses it's like, well, damn, I want to have no content filter so I can get some whatever I want. Like, it makes it hard for me to make horror stuff, for example. But I mean, if people wanted to make adult stuff or whatever, but the thing is, when I got a Stable Diffusion working on my own machine, so instead of It's not on a website, and there's no filter. I really need to. I'm waiting now for a filter I can install because I've seen things that'll give Cronenberg nightmares. Like, and it's just the AI not knowing what to do. But it'll, like, if you have any kind of body horror, you don't want to start. I would stick with getting like pictures of places and things from it, because you really do. You get some, like, I've seen some disturbing things come from that stuff. It's all like I need a filter. As soon as they have a filter I can set, I will be setting filters. But but what they needed on the other side too, like so you can't do a pile of nefarious stuff, and they're working on that too. So there definitely needs to be stopgaps, but I really think the stopgaps are only going to be in the high quality, like paid community versions, the mainstream version. But you're still going to get one you can fire up on your own machine and do whatever to.
But these are the companies that are making those rules.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
what happens
you
when a
kind of
company
hate
comes
the
along
idea
and
of their
says, "We
rules
don't
until you
want them"?
realize. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, what happens when a company comes along and says, "Well, we don't want to have those rules because these other companies have those rules. So if we want to get ahead, we need to create one that doesn't have these rules." That's why
You'll go to them, and then you'll realize, like, no, I'd appreciate a couple of filters on this.
Some people might.
Because I think there are people out there that are creating deep fake revenge porn, and this is one of those things that's going to help advance the technology of ruining people's lives in that way as well. There's a lot of legal issues that our current legislation doesn't touch, and I wanted, the last time I talked about AI art publicly, I came off as very pessimistic. I feel like I'm also doing that right now. I want to say I have hope that I do have hope. I do have hope, but I don't have blind hope. I have hope that I think collectively we can come together and use this technology in a way that and regulate it in a way that makes sense. Just like we learned how to split the atom, we didn't just say, well, it's inevitable that now everybody gets to make nukes. We're like, you know what? Maybe we should just limit that a lot. And we should just kind of like tamp this down and control, put some limiters on it. We don't just because the technology exists doesn't mean that it's inevitable that everybody gets to use it and that
you're not taking my nuke, Corey. You're not getting it.
So Adam Laura actually kind of brought up a really good point too, which is in the U.S., no image generated by a computer program can be owned by anyone ever. And so, like, that's another thing is like ownership. So, like, if you are making stuff that can't be trademarked or copyrighted,
that's as far as I know, that's not right, because and like half the people are saying it and half the people aren't. But like the whole reason when I get into Dolly, they said, "What you make is yours. You can use it however you want."
But what's stopping me from going to your website and pulling that stuff off and selling it myself?
What stopped me right now from taking the stuff that is on there, like all my other art? I mean, nefarious people are going to twist their mustache.
Is that technically legal or not?
Well,
that I don't know.
As far as I know, because especially with this credit system, I paid whatever 20 cents to get that from you. So that's sort of a commission. So that's and a lot of what the ones I'm using say is what you make is yours. And I'm in the spot where I'm also just not pressing the button and printing it out. I press the button, I get it as a resource, and I build something in Photos. That's definitely mine.
Right. Yeah. You've worked on it. That be whatever you transform.
Yeah, and like even an easy one where I use the AI to make a top and a bottom, and I stitch it together, and then I adjust the colors and whatever. Is that enough? I'd say that's enough. I made that. So.
There's a range in copyright law, and again, I don't think copyright law as it stands is a good measure, but there is a range of copyright law that is a scale between derivative and transformative, and that's one of the 4 pillars of fair use. The more transformative something is, the more right you have to claim copyright to that thing. The less transformative or the more derivative it is, the less. And so, the amount that you mess with it would actually come into play in a courtroom. Yeah. And so, I think you're right. If you take something and then you work it over and you spend a lot of time, doing things to it, and the more you do that, the more you have ownership of that thing, and the less you do that, I kind of feel like the less you have, not you specifically, but like all those push button that you're saying.
If you press a thing, if you just press a thing and print that out, I think really, if somebody else pressed the thing and got that and printed it out, I don't think you'd have a battle with them because you're kind of, you did what they did. But yeah, if you put some actual, it's just levels of quality is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So something
And a lot of people
yeah.
don't mention, like, everybody's talking about, oh, it's generating stuff. Okay, but the editing abilities it gives you, where you can cut a piece out of a picture and it will match the style of what you need, and you tell it to, fix this other half of this person's face. Well, based on the half they have, it might, there's a lot of amazing editing stuff. That's mostly what I use, actually. Like, I might get the resources from them, but then I also use them to put it together.
Mhm. Yeah. I
So-
mean, it's to a certain extent a force multiplier. I don't think a hole is dug. A hole isn't a hole whether it's dug by a person with a shovel or it's dug by a backhoe. But the
Yeah.
speed that it does, I mean, there are certain things that just add force multiplication to human effort. This, I think, probably is that and a lot of other things. I don't think it's just that, but
Yeah.
definitely it can be used in a way to, just increase
It's-
like something
it's
that
gonna
I would
be
be
used-
very.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No,
It's
go
going
ahead.
to be used as an amazing tool to make fantastic things by cool people, and it's going to be used as an evil, vile, disgusting thing used by the evil, vile, disgusting people.
That's
Mhm.
a good way of putting it.
And somebody who spends 20 years developing something specific that is very hard for another individual to knock off, it will learn it and it will take it and it'll make it available without that person's permission.
Yeah, that is, yeah, because I mean, especially if you're like a famous artist or whatever, that's input is ingrained in the software. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, I agree with Corey that there has to be some I don't know whether it's some regulations or some, at the very least, attributions, if not some kind of compensation. I don't
Yeah.
know, especially, but again, that's fan art. I mean, it's hard for people to. I mean, people are still selling people's IPs and stuff, and most people continue to do it without any kind of consequences. So,
But even
What-
fan art,
yeah.
even fan art has a huge range of, I took this panel and I put it down on a light board and I copied over the top of it, to I've done something drastically transformative
Right, yeah,
and very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a big range in there. And so I think it's the problem is that there's a human limiter of time and focused effort. If I want to draw like Scott Circland, I could spend 10 years copying everything that I've seen him do, and I could get to that point, and it would be somewhat of a limiting factor on myself, but I could figure that out. But I couldn't do it in minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
It would take hundreds, if not thousands of hours to hone that particular thing. The limiting factor of human intelligence makes that somewhat of a non-issue, because if Josh comes up with a thing and everybody's like, holy crap, this is amazing. Well, he's done that because of the last 20 years of his life or more have been dedicated to building towards that thing. And people that try to catch up to him, copy him, knock him off, are going to be behind the 8 ball. But the software, the AI, the pattern recognition machines and the deep learning will be able to do that so quickly that it becomes an ethical issue for me.
Yeah.
Because
I-
there's not a human limiting factor.
I think, like Corey too, what you were saying about like truck drivers being kind of replaced eventually by like automated driving, there is a little bit of deep thinking, I think, in general, that as a country we're going to need to do when it comes to like automation and job displacement, because there's a lot of statistics too on like what because a lot of people are like, well, just train the truckers to like do computer programming.
Yeah, just
And,
teach
like-
Ruby on Rails.
And like even for us, like Corey, like Scott, like Creed, I think we're all at an age where if we had to just completely relearn something, you're not going to necessarily like thrive, You know,
No.
if you're going from being an artist to like suddenly doing coding, I mean, there might be a few people who would, but I think we need to start thinking in bigger terms, like about like what do we do when computers kind of replace day labor, and in general that includes art, but you know, again, like just starting to think about how do people survive when the computers start kind of taking over everything. And I do think some sort of thinking about like post consumerism culture and like what kind of ways we'll take care of people is like I think a real it's an apt topic because we're not alone in the art field
Right.
with having something kind of encroach on our space. It's like, you know, I mean, go to McDonald's or something, and you'll see like a you know, an automated cashier, you know, and so like this is gonna happen. It's happened in medicine with radiology, where like most radiologists are now close to out of a job because computers can, you know, make a much more accurate assessment of like radiology. So I don't know. It's just something I think we should be like. I agree with Corey. We should tread cautiously, but I also think we should also be aware, right? Because you do want to stay current to whatever, you know, like if there's a benefit you can get from AI, um, you know, maybe look into it. But I agree with Corey. That's a huge thing we need to consider, you know.
And I'll tell you, I will be the first in line as soon as there's a button I can push that flats a page for me.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think for comics, from what I see from the AI, now there's people out there that are really breaking their back and twisting and turning to try to get, you know, work around what they can do right now. But I think as soon as AI gives you basically what I would think of as like a character macro. Okay, this is Roy. Here's 20 drawings I did of Roy. When I say Roy, that's Roy. As soon as they can do that, and then also the training of your own style into it, which will eventually develop and whatever. As soon as you can do that, then you can go, hey, Roy's driving along in his this kind of car. Okay, blip. Then he goes here, and you know, but they're not there. We're not there yet, but that's coming. As soon as that comes, I'll probably make a comic. You know, so Roy, the Adventures of Roy.
Oh yeah, and I mean, they're. I mean, to say something positive about it, I think. I sometimes wish there are certain creators that I'm like, in their lifetime, they might be able to do 20 books, or if they're doing it full time, maybe they do 100 books. I wish I had 200 books from them. You know what I mean? Like I wish there was, and if there is something that, you know, took certain people and was able to allow them to produce similar quality things at a faster rate, you know,
where they would own that but they would own that likeness of their style or something and something.
Yeah, but there would need to be.
Yeah.
There would
but
need
that's
to be
exactly what it's done
issues
for me. Like my most productive year was a few years, probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And I think I did, because I used to count how good my year was by how many pieces of art I made. And I can't do it anymore because my health's kind of dodgy. But like I think the most I ever did was 80. It might have been 83, something like that. And I always, my goal was 100. And in the month I've had AI, I've done over 140 pieces of what I consider finished art. And I do consider it mine because I told it what to do. I sort of what I guess what I would just assume Josh's job would be. I tell the guy, I need this, I need that. I get it. And then I have to work on it to get the final thing because the final thing is mine, that my name's on it. So that's kind of how it works is I go, hey, AI, give me this and give me that. And he gives me, and I'm like, no, that's junk. That's good. That's junk. And then I piece it together and I make stuff out of it.
Yeah.
But I've done over 140 pieces. That's more than I've ever done ever, let alone in a month. So, and it's given me now the experimental idea that I always had, because they say like, oh, niche down and stuff. So I said, okay, if I could do a couple hundred pieces and make a store on a certain subject, let's see how that goes. So I'm working on a store all about VR. Everybody's in a VR helmet and it's, a zillion things. And I only stopped because I switched to Halloween because Halloween's my season and this is the time to do it. But I'm going to switch back to VR, and I want to. That's its own store. Everything else is going to go all, everything I do will be on one place. But this is going to be just VR stuff, and I want to see how that goes. But I couldn't do 300 pieces of VR art 6 months ago. That was just an idea. That's not even practical. But now, that's where I'm working. It's a project.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, Creed, you touched on something which actually was the reason why I reached out to you and asked you to be on the show, because you had said something about that. I mean, and looking at AI as a tool and everything, that just because of health issues and stuff, you can't produce the kind of work that you used to, and that this is helping you to kind of continue to create art. And that it sort of resonated with me, because I know I know, like, when I'm hand inking and stuff, I can't get the steady line that I used to do. But like when I'm in Clip Studio Paint and it's just got a little tad bit of correction, I can get, that aids me in getting that smooth line that I used to get with the brush. So I definitely see how AI can assist people, especially, whether you're getting older or whether, you've got health issues, and to continue to create stuff. Because to me, and I find myself like not drawing as much as I used to, but I'm still, everything I'm doing is creative, So like, whereas, I'm working on a comic right now where I'm writing it, but I'm not drawing it. I just don't have the time to draw it myself. I'm drawing another comic, and I draw every day, but there's still a lot of stuff that I do that isn't necessarily drawing, that is still creative. And I think people that think being a creative person doesn't necessarily mean you draw. And I think a lot of those creative people, that's going to help them, manifest their creations in a way they couldn't before, So I don't know. There's just a lot of, again, I think there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of, like Corey's bringing up, a lot of things we need to be concerned about.
Corey's dead on. Yeah. Nothing Corey said is wrong at all. I totally agree completely. That's probably going to happen. And the sad thing is, do we usually stop stuff like that even when we see it coming? No.
Well, like Corey said, we have. We have.
But I wonder if the public's become a little bit numb to rapid changes, because when was Dolly the sheep cloned, in the 90s or something? Yeah. So it is concerning. But I mean, there are times when we've hit the brakes on things. But I think currently
we used to have like laws against, well, we still do, but they're not very effective, but against monopolies and things like that. And now it's like, I think, like you said, people are just that's just, the bigger the company, the more services they can provide. It's okay, really think about it.
In the 80s, they took the teeth out of the monopoly laws.
Yeah.
And we've been, in every sector of society, have had just monopolies just gobbling everything up since then. But I mean, that's one of the problems, I think, is if because which one of these is Elon Musk an investor in?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's one of the big ones. It might be Dolly, that he's a big investor in. And I mean, if we didn't have these monopolies, we would have more market competition, which is another limiting factor to this type of thing, this type of market dominance. And if you have market dominance like Facebook, who's going to come up with a product that will topple Facebook? It's not like Facebook is good. It's just that they're so big that they kill or buy anybody that shows any possibility of being an actual competitor for them. And that's kind of the problem with kind of monopolies. And so, I don't know if there's some guy in his basement building something that, like, I'm going to make it so that comic book artists can flat their pages with the push of a button, right? That's not super threatening and it's kind of helpful. But if you have giant monopolistic billionaire-backed conglomerates that are doing huge deep learning machine AI with no regulations, then that thing can do anything in a certain space. I don't even know if that would be possible.
But well, Corey, would wouldn't it be easier for us with these tools? And like I said, they'll probably, before you get to a certain point, they'll probably quash you or whatever. But with the ability to increase productivity and create things on a scale we as individuals haven't before, we could get closer to something that a company could do just out of our garage.
Yeah, and I think you might, I would agree that is possible. I think you would run into, if that is the case, there are only so many consumers on the planet, and you would have market saturation. If everybody becomes a creator, then who's actually watching, looking at, and listening to the creations?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can produce, if I can produce 100 things in a year or 50,000 things in a year, at a certain point, people are going to be like, "Oh, cool, Corey made another 10,000 things that I'm not going to look at." One of them was cool, though. There is a limit of consumption and use. I mean, I only have 24 hours in the day. I guess if my job is replaced and I'm on universal basic income, I can watch a lot more TV. So those automated cartoons that the people are making out of their garage would get at least 8 hours more viewing, I guess. But I don't know what happens to humanity once we become a pure consumerist culture that doesn't do anything.
Well, I'm not. Look, I could see if there ever was a universal basic income. It's not. I'm not going to be the one sitting around watching TV. I'm going to be the one creating stuff. Even if it's just for me. Even if I don't have to, because I don't have to sell it to anyone. I can just create it for myself.
Right.
And I think UBI might be something we might want to think about, just in general. Like if automation starts taking jobs, I think.
Well, yeah. What else are we gonna do? I mean, people have to live. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it is crazy. It's crazy to think about all this stuff, but yeah, I don't know. That's why I kind of wanted to have this discussion, because there's just so much to think about, and getting all these different opinions, and Corey bringing up things that I hadn't. I mean, I had kind of considered, but not to that extent. And yeah,
leave it to me to be the giant wet blanket of doom.
No, but I think we need that. We need that because, like you said, so people are just kind of complacent, or they're just oh, that's just the way it is. What can you do about it? When in fact, like you said, you brought up points where we can do. There are things we can do about it, and without sacrificing the technology. I think too. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I think we can. I think there's systems that we can put in place, whether to regulate. I know there's a lot of people that don't like regulation of any kind, but I mean, when it's I don't know, regulation when it's could spell something that could spell the end of humanity. But then again, you can look at environmental issues, and there's people that just don't believe that that's an issue that exists, and so it's unfortunately everyone's different. Everyone believes different things, so getting people on the same page, that's going to be difficult.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a concern that I have, is when the people are kind of selfish, and so like all of us, myself included, we're
me too. Yeah. I mean, I'm like looking at, sometimes I look at the benefit to myself, and sometimes you don't see how this could affect other people, or so I get it.
I'm just trying to use this stuff for good. So, but I know there's the ability out there for evil, and they should probably work on that. And as far as I know, they are, like, all the people that are making these anyway. But Scott, is there a way I can show because I've had my screen share, but it's not showing Photoshop.
I'm sorry.
No, I just got a few cool things I want to show you guys. Like Corey was talking about Google Images. Now there's three things I use my headset for. It has replaced my VR headset. It has replaced my TV a year ago. I only watch stuff at a big giant drive-in theater. It's amazing. I just watched Rick and Morty before this. It was something else. Cool. But and then I also I try to keep evil Mad Scientist Mondays zombie horde down as far as I can. I play Drop Dead every day I can. And then the other thing is a new discovery. There's a program called Wander, and it uses Google's Street View. These are I was tooling around Uruguay today, and let me see here. These are a couple of pictures I took of just some, like, sort of a rough neighborhood, but just somebody painted these That's in Montevideo, Uruguay. I was tooling around there today. It's an interesting spot.
Huh.
That's cool.
But I just thought they'd be cool. But then last night I went into Dolly and I did, look at these. I did
I was
said,
gonna do that for my thumbnail. I wanted to go in and see what kind of mad scientist I can create with the green lab coat.
I told them mad scientist, green lab coat, tubes on the wall, underground lair. And that's what he gave me. And then also I typed in do things robots can't, and I think we're pretty safe so far from the judging by
Yeah, that's the thing. I can look at this right now and I can say, "Oh, my job's secure," but at the rate this thing is learning and creating,
until tomorrow,
it's it's that I think that's the thing. A lot of people are naive to is that they look at it and they say, "Oh, yeah, it's like." Yeah, I'm not worried about losing my job looking at this stuff, but the fact that this has all happened in the span of like maybe a couple of years at the most.
Oh, it's changed a few times on me, and I've only been doing it a month. Like I already like the old way, And
every time somebody inputs every time somebody, and like you said, you're creating all this artwork. Everyone's creating all this. Every time somebody inputs new prompts and it creates things and it gets refined, it's learning.
I've noticed
every time the more people input it, the faster it's learning.
I've noticed a weird thing, and just me being paranoid, and I have a kind of a sci-fi mind or whatever. But when I let's say I do a prompt and it gives me some images, and then let's say I say a demon with horns, and it gives me demon horns, and and then the next thing I do is guy in the park, and this is an unrelated prompt, and there could be one or two of those images where the guy will have horns. And I sort of suspiciously take that as that's the eye of the AI looking back at me through the computer going, that's you, Creed, and I know the kind of stuff you ask for. Like it's learning from me, it's absorbing me as I'm absorbing it.
Yep.
It really is.
Oh yeah. Well, that's wearable tech. When we walk around letting things monitor our biometric data and they've got a mic and camera on all of our experiences, there's a glut of information that you could mine with that. So yeah, there's we are all feeding this, and I'm speaking somewhat as a hypocrite with somebody who's got Alexa speakers in my home that are listening to everything that's going on. And I drive a car that was made recently, not a car that was made before the 1970s, so it's got a computer in it. And I'm a user of technology. I don't think we think about it enough. I don't think we are as judicious with the way that we're doing it. I think we've been trained to be a little bit complacent with what we're willing to accept.
I think that's why we need voices like yours, Corey, to make us think about that stuff, because the first thing I look at is like, oh, look at all the cool stuff I can do. And I'm like, okay, but yeah, that's great. But maybe there's some things to concern ourselves about. And I was thinking, I don't want to be a hypocrite either, because, I'm thinking, oh, there's so much stuff that technology has allowed me to do that I couldn't do before. Like I brought up and I haven't experimented with this, but I'm not a musician, but there's AI out there that can, if I need a song creator, that I can have it create a song for me, like a custom song. And to me, that's attractive because that's something that I typically I wouldn't be able to do. But somebody who's not an artist that can now create artwork, I can see how that's, So it's like when you put the shoe on the other foot, it's like, okay, yeah, I don't know. But I'm curious. It's interesting. I'm just looking at these images that Creed posted, the robots one. Why does it have such a hard time with text?
It speaks Minion. As far as I can tell, it speaks Minion, and everybody talks about that.
The easiest thing to do.
I think I've gotten 4 or 5 images that had proper spelling, and they had minimal words.
Weird.
But the rest is it's all Minion speak.
Yeah, because I would like that. That's got to be the easiest thing to do. But it can create all these pictures of mad scientists in a lab that
There's probably another AI that's perfect at this and can't draw.
I want to call out a couple things in the chat. First, Sean Tiffany says there is something that flats pages for you. Please tell me what that thing is, and I will 100% use it.
Well, I know there's flatting programs. There was one that was I think it was a Mac based one, so I couldn't use it. I forgot what it was, but it's been around for a long time. But yeah, I know there's I forgot what that one was called, but it just basically throws a bunch of different colors in there, but yeah, I mean, I remember people using that way back in the day, so I'm sure it's coming a long way for that. I'm just wondering if that's kind of a niche thing that the masses aren't looking for, so it's probably not as much urgency to get something like that out there, but I wouldn't be surprised if it exists. But yeah, Sean, let Corey know that for sure.
And then Jeremy has a great comment. Jeremy, I brought you up with a student today, by the way, who's I said, hey, you should jump on this guy's Patreon because I think he'd have what you're looking for. But he says, what happens when the internet is flooded with so much AI art that 95% of what it has to learn from is other AI generated pieces, eating its own poop, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's why I think there's going to be so much stuff out there that's really kind of derivative. I mean, but I look at this stuff and I'm like, oh, okay, this is really, I'm seeing some amazing stuff, but I think at some point people are going to be looking for something different or something more that AI isn't doing, and I think that's where I'm going to lean into.
Oh yeah, if you want to see the low end, just the front page of DeviantArt. And I'm not picking on DeviantArt. I've been on there 11 years, and it's one of my main platforms. There's excellence on there, but it's also like a public park. There's also dog poop.
Yeah. Well, and I think when that time comes, people like Creed are going to be ahead of the game because you're not just pushing the button. You're doing things with it. You're changing it. You're pushing the boundaries of it. And I'll probably be left in the dust saying, oh boy, I wish I would have spent 3 years learning how to do that or whatever.
I'm just hoping when the AI takes over, they'll be like, hey, it's my friend from work, like, hey, it's my buddy, it's my art buddy Creed, and they'll be enslaving everybody else, and they might just have to say, here, use it here. I don't know.
I can 100% guarantee I'll be the first one up against the wall when that happens. So. Adam has a question. I want to hear Creed's answer to this. In terms of producing images, is there anything in principle that we could do that a robot won't be able to do? What do you think? Like fast forward 5-10 years. What do you think, Creed?
I think if you wanted to, and I'm sure it would make a good try, but I think let's say by the time it's perfect and it can just no, there's no glitchy, there's no whatever. Let's say by that time, I think if you want a photograph that's like, I need to feel this strong emotion of loss or sadness or something like that, I think it would make a good shot and probably get a few wins, but not 100%. And I think people could probably get 100% on something like that. This photo needs to make me feel like this. Well, like I said, it's probably so good it would do some wins, but there's no way it would just do as good.
I think we're a ways away from it creating any kind of a narrative. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can put a narrative in a single picture, but
we haven't been talking about this, but at the same time, as this conversation is going on, there are other conversations in Discords that I'm part of where there are AIs trying to learn how to write.
Oh yeah. I know that's a thing too. And write, whether it's a novel, screenplay.
There's some of them that write prompts for these AIs to draw things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's my argument against the people that are like, well, I'm the one that typed it in. I'm like, no, you got to be like Creed and do stuff to it, because if you're just typing it in, I could write I'm not even a good programmer, and I could write a program that'll give it prompts, that's not super hard. But if you look at like things that are easy to replicate, and I'm not talking about good writing, but episodic kind of formulaic writing.
Oh yeah, you could easily write an episode of CSI or something like that. Right. There's such a formula to something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be weird and funny, and we'll laugh at it right now, but think of the amount of words available just in English in the past couple thousand years that it could go through. I mean, analyze every ebook that exists is already digitized for you, and then apply the hero's journey or Save the Cat, or any other type of fairly formulaic story structure. And you could probably get an AI to get pretty close. Now, that again brings up a very similar argument of, are people going to prefer that? And I think I'm being judgmental, but I'll be judgmental. Why not? I think people that, read like 4 romance novels a week that are all kind of all the same, like, kind of formula, maybe they'd love it because then they could read 40 a week and it'd be great. But those of us that are looking for interesting stories that have a human element to it, could an AI write 2 stories or Jacob's Apartment? I don't think so, because that's from a very deeply vulnerable and human space. And so that's my hope, is that there's still value in the humanity of things, because I read that and I feel a deeper connection to Josh, the human being that I know. And I think if I didn't know him, I would read that and feel a deeper connection to Josh, the artist, Josh, the person that wrote that thing. I don't think that would be the same thing as if an AI tried to do some autobio or tried to do something. I would just be like, boy, they sure aped that well. And it's missing, it's lacking that soul. It's lacking that underpinning that causes some of the value in Josh's work.
Yeah. Well, I know we could probably go on this topic, and I'm sure at some point we'll probably revisit it, but we are getting close to our hour and a half. So is there any final thoughts anyone has to say that they want to get in here before we kind of close out?
I have this sticker available if anybody wants to buy it.
Well, that's the thing, because it's like when you first put that out and you kind of had the idea that robots will never be creative, or at least they're very far away from that, and when they do, then it's all over. And now it's kind of like, even though they're not really creative, but it's still, this came a lot sooner than I was anticipating.
I say all the time, I wish I was wrong more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything anyone want to say to wrap up then? Or
I just think you guys should subscribe to Corey's email and also pick up that sticker, because it's true. We should be doing things robots can't.
And at least right now, it's way better than the 4 results that Creed came up with.
I don't know. I have to say, I kind of want that robot that says "do tinct to tagning." I almost want that as like a T-shirt, because it's so absurd.
I love that there is speed lines and a drop shadow on the text in that particular one. It's like it's pretty
well. And I'm wondering how much it knows, because the one thing I thought about was how well does it know how to do like painting light and shade, because that's something that I might use as a tool, is like if I need help with some lighting or something on a figure. Does it know where to place the lighting and everything?
You can tell it direction, lighting, colors, especially, and it takes a lot of, depending on the AI, but it takes a lot of film terms. Like I get around the wonky hands a lot I'll do a medium close shot, and usually then maybe there's not a hand in it, or it might just be one, like stuff like that. But you use cinematic terms, and most of them understand it now.
I just want to point out Sam's comment, because this is a whole different discussion, but something very fascinating. There are those in high respected roles, as well as common people, who are having these discussions about a time when AI will be considered alive. And when that happens, we have to consider rights. Some of my favorite sci-fi is the question of sentient nature and rights and those type of things. Really,
I love Johnny 5.
Yeah, right. Johnny 5 is alive. Do not disassemble.
And I do think androids dream of electric sheep. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because one of the things I put, because I did a video on AI, my initial thoughts, and one of the things that I said, and this isn't, this came, somebody had brought up in the comments that there's actually a novel about this, which didn't surprise me at all. But I'm sure I'm not the first person that thought of this. But if you could actually own, invest in your own robot that could do your job, send it to work, and just have them do your job for you. I mean, that kind of thing is like, but at that one point, is it
until he got sick of being your flunky?
Right, exactly. Is this where? At what point does that robot have feelings and understanding, and then it's like basically a slave to your bidding? I mean, that's kind of like, so
they'll be like asking the robot, "So how is Scott?" And they'll be like, "Oh, that guy."
Yeah,
when you know it's trouble's coming.
Yeah. All right, so okay, let's we'll go ahead and wrap it up then, and we'll kind of move around the room like we usually do. It's kind of like we did in the beginning, and just remind people where they can find us, anything we have to promote. So we'll start. We'll start with Josh. Josh, what about you?
All right. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. So there's this book, Jacob's Apartment, which you guys should pick up, and that's coming of age graphic novel, a doomed romance that is similar to if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind and Ghost World and you put those in a blender. If you like that kind of flavor of story, it will be right up your alley. It's about the kinds of questions that can challenge even the strongest of faith. 2 stories. My other graphic novel, this one talks about my journey dealing with depression. That's available on Amazon, and you can buy it today. And then last but not least, No Saboteurs. If you like rock and roll, and preferably rock and roll with a little bit of a post-punk vibe, then check out No Saboteurs, No Emperors, and No Saboteurs. Good Bees Don't Die. Those are all really good.
I gotta check that out. Why didn't you hold on to one of those and wait? I guess I mean
We just thought it would be fun.
Yeah, and
to just drop
cool,
like 30
into,
songs.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
That's awesome.
All right, Corey.
Yeah, I want to end by saying I think there will always be a biological imperative to connect with humanity. And so if you want to connect with some humanity, I've got some humanity all over my website. So go check that out. And if you want to see how I feel about wearable tech and some of the dangers of augmented reality relationships versus IRL relationships, then you can go watch Shades.
Yeah,
Love it.
Definitely check out Shades if you haven't already. All right, Creed.
My website's infinitecoolness.com. Like I said, I have everything poorly linked up there. My 2 main things right now are every day I do minimum 7 posts to Instagram, and it's all pop culture and art related, retro 80s stuff, mostly stuff from my own personal collections of posters, magazines, comics, etc. And that's every day because it's on the little handout I now have in my to orders for my store. So it says daily post. So I'm like, oh, I'm locked in now. But and then also deviantart.com/Creed Stonegate is now, that's daily too now. So, and I post probably between 6 and 10 brand new AI pieces a day. Right now it's Halloween, and I post everything from happy kitten with a pumpkin to half melted zombie biting somebody's face up. Everywhere in between, I'm trying to cover Halloween. I'm the biggest Halloween fan in the world. So that's kind of, those are my 2 main things.
That's awesome. And the other thing I want to, and those links are also in the description of this video. But I would encourage people also to check out Creed's YouTube channel. He hasn't he recently put up one video.
I dug the corpse out of the ground and dragged it into the sun. So we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I would go back through the arcades if you're just interested. The thing that really attracted me to what Creed was doing and made me a fan was, he was doing, he does a lot of fan art and stuff, but the videos where he's drawing different characters, popular characters from pop culture, but he would give like a history lesson on each one of the characters. And I thought that's super fascinating. So, I mean, it's fun if you're just interested in classic cartoon characters and some obscure ones too, that you might not even know. And he would just go through and who the voice actor is that played him, who's the, when it premiered, all that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting stuff in the archive of Creed stuff. And if you want to see him elaborate, he does have one new video where he just posted talking about how AI is his superpower. So AI art, the ability to do that. So definitely check out his channel as well. And as far as me, you can find my stuff at circworks.com. You can also find me on this YouTube channel where I have a series called Making Comics 101. It is a step-by-step, different videos have different disciplines on creating comics all in order. So if you start with coming up with the ideas, you take it all the way to printing, publishing, and there's tons of stuff in between. But it's pretty much the most comprehensive course on making comics that you'll find on YouTube. So I always like to point people to that. And then I also do videos where, I just talk about the business of art and everything. And there will be some big changes coming to the channel, probably around next year or so. So stay tuned for that. But just, a lot of cool stuff on my channel as well. And then last but not least, I want to talk about this show we do, the Artcasters. We do this show every single week, and it rotates between our channels. It's on my channel next week. I don't know. Josh is back now, so who knows where it's going to be. But it rotates around our different channels. And first of all, you should subscribe to everyone's channels, but also join our mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video. We don't spam or anything. We just let you know whose channel we're going to be on, who the guest is going to be on, what time, what day, and everything, because that can all fluctuate. YouTube's not always the best at alerting people. So if you want to be in the know when we're going to go live, all that stuff, just join our mailing list. Usually about 30 minutes ahead of time, we'll send out an email and let you know we're about to go live and where to find us. So definitely check that out. And check out some of the cool stuff Corey's doing on his channel. Great to have Josh back. Check out Josh's stuff. Check out Creed stuff. And thank you to everyone in the chat. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Later.